Great. Um, Good evening, everyone. I'd like to open our board meeting for May 18, 2021. Right now, may I have a motion to accept the closed session agenda?
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Mintz and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Call out vote. Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, is there a public comment regarding the closed session item?
There is not.
Okay, then we're going to adjourn closed session. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the San Ramon Valley Unified School District Board of Education meeting. We want to let the public know that we are video recording today's meeting. The recording is being live streamed on the district's YouTube channel, and a link to the recording has been posted to the district website. I'd like to introduce the board members, Vice President Ken Mintz,
Good evening.
Clerk Rachel Hurd,
Good evening.
Board Member Laura Bratt,
Hello.
and Board Member Shelley Clark.
Good evening.
I can't believe it's actually almost the end of May and the end of a very, very different and challenging school year. I know it's a very busy time for everyone right now, so thank you to everyone who is attending our board meeting in person and watching our live stream. With that, if you can join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, 6.0, report of action taken in closed session. So during this evening's closed session, the board made the following appointments effective July 1st, 2021. Carrie Van de Star, Director, Human Services, Certificated Director, Human Resources. Katie Witt, Director of Instructional Services, and Eduardo Guarena, Middle School Assistant Principal. Okay, 7.0, acceptance of minutes. May I have a motion to accept the minutes of May 4th, 2021?
So moved. Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Bratt and seconded by Board Member Clark. Call out vote. Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, 8.1, acceptance of open session agenda. May I have a motion to accept tonight's open session agenda?
Moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Mintz. Call out vote. Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, 8.2, approval of consent agenda. Consent items are considered routine in nature and are approved by combining them into a single vote. A member of the board or a member of the public may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda to be considered and voted on separately. There is tonight, there's certificated and classified personnel changes in the consent agenda have been revised. Okay, and then there's a request, right? We have a request to be moving item 11.13 from the agenda. I believe that is because there was a change, or?
Actually, there was no change.
There was no change.
The backup didn't make it into the published packet, so we'll publish it correctly for the next agenda on June 1st, and we'll bring it back to you then.
Okay, thank you. So then may I, is there a request from the public to remove a consent agenda? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Board Member Clark,
Aye.
Board Member Bratt,
Aye.
Board Member Hurd,
Aye.
Member Mintz, Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay. 9.1, update on strategic planning stakeholder engagement. I guess Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Deb Pettish, will help us with this one.
Thank you, President Ordway. I'm going to with a brief introduction as Deb makes her way to the microphone. We are very pleased to bring this information to you this evening. The reason why we're bringing it to you as information, just to remind that we will be bringing a draft strategic directions to you on June 1st based upon your discussion this evening. And then our plan is to bring a finalized version on June 15th. So we have been engaged in this process since we started with the board workshop, which is back in February at this point. Hard to believe in some ways that we really did something that I think was very important. Even though we were in the throes of the intensity of the pandemic at that time, you'll recall that we discussed that we really continued the need to do our work, to be strategic and focused as we serve our students in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. And as your superintendent, I was very grateful that you gave us the direction to continue to do this work, because I know it would have been easier simply to continue to do our pandemic-related education work. And I think we lost an opportunity. And so I'm grateful to you for the direction and for your engagement throughout this process. I'm really thankful and grateful to our community, all of our stakeholders who came forward to share their perspective, which Debbie will represent this evening. And I look forward to explaining at the end how it is going to be a process that will get to a certain milestone in June, but we're also proposing some significant work in August to December so that what you decide here at district level can really be brought into our sites, our school sites, departments, so that more can be involved regarding what it means for them in their school. And the plan would be to bring back a report next January that solidifies even more the details of the strategic planning and the strategic commitments that you'll be approving. If we could just go to the next slide, please. You will recall that on that very important foundation of equity, we are committed through this work to deep in innovation and social emotional well-being. And I'm going to leave it to Deb to speak more specifically about our stakeholder engagement surrounding this. But I want to add one other caveat that you're going to see on June 1st. As we engaged our community, students, staff, parents, caretakers, and such, we also learned that these important directions do not happen in a vacuum, and that it's very important that conditions exist throughout our district so that we can make these commitments a reality. So what you're going to see on June 1st is some commitments to creating a culture of shared leadership. What we mean by shared leadership is that the expertise and experience of all, the voices of all, including those that are sometimes not represented, are necessary in order for us to do this important strategic work. So you're going to see more of that on June 1st. You're also going to see a commitment to what we're calling service excellence. The reason why you're going to see it is because one of the things we heard from some of our staff is whenever we are engaged in strategic work in a school district context, that some of our staff may not explicitly see themselves in that work. And that's where the whole concept of, regardless of what your role is in our district, we serve students. And sometimes that is direct, sometimes that service is, but it is still exceptionally important. And so we're going to have some members to resonate. And last but not least, because we talked about it talking about it in the meetings to come, the whole concept of responsible stewardship of our resources, allocation and such, does need to be a part of the context in which we do this work. So I wanted to share that with you because you gave us clear direction to go deep with our community on equity, deep learning and innovation, social emotional well-being. We learned that the context pieces are also important. These ideas emerge through the process. We need to do a little bit more work on these pieces so that it is ready for you on June 1st. And I wanted to flag that for you. So I'm going to stop here and I'll turn it over to Debbie Pettish. Thank you.
Hello,
You're there.
testing. Okay, thank you. So, thank you again, Board of Education, for having me here this evening. So, as you can see from this slide, and as Dr. Malloy alluded to earlier, there's really 6 phases of our strategic planning process. So, it began at the beginning of the semester. We, of course, did a needs assessment or gap analysis. A gap analysis that helped us to identify some preliminary priorities for the district. We, of course, brought them to you in the form of 2 board workshops that spanned about 6 hours in order to share information and get guidance from you on next steps. We then took that guidance, refined the priorities, and then took that information out to our stakeholder groups. And we spent about 6 weeks, the entire month of April and some of May, engaging our students, engaging our staff, and engaging our community. And it was really, really a wonderful process. So as Dr. Malloy said, we will bring back a draft of our plan once we get your feedback tonight. We'll bring back that draft in June, and then hopefully finalize it in June. And then first semester of next year, we will be working alongside our administrators in order to support them in developing site-specific plans. So tonight we will be covering the who, the how, the when, and the what of stakeholder engagement for the strategic plan. So how? We essentially used 4 different mechanisms in order to gather input. So we use thought exchange, and I know that you are all familiar with thought exchange. So of course you ask questions, and then people can input their thoughts into thought exchange. So that's a great tool, but to me, the beauty of using thought exchange, especially for something like this, really lies in the ability of users to go on and rate the thoughts of others. That was really invaluable because you can imagine someone, especially a student, going on and they may or may not have ideas, but then when they read something that somebody else wrote and it really resonates with them, then they can give it those 5 stars. And those thoughts rise to the top and help us do a little bit of our qualitative analysis. We also, of course, did focus groups. So we had 1 or 2 facilitators paired with about 10 to 15 people, depending on the group. And that was just a great way, as you can imagine, to really have more kind of intimate, homey conversations with individuals so that when they said something, probe a little bit more deeply as to the meaning behind what they were saying they wanted for our district. Denise Jennison created an amazing, robust website. It had so much information on and about our strategic planning process, and that was a great resource. And then, of course, Dr. Malloy has started the Superintendent's Task Force, and that is somewhat similar to a focus group, but it has a wider range of individuals on at any given time, and definitely ask questions about the future direction of the district, but slightly different questions than what we asked stakeholders. So we kind of put all that input together in order to draw some conclusions. So the who. We wanted to ask the same questions across stakeholder groups because we wanted to eventually look at the commonalities that existed across stakeholder groups. So we asked, it's really the same question from 3 different perspectives. So we wanted to know, what do our students need to be successful in school and in life, from the perspective of first equity and equitable access for all, in terms of deep learning and innovation, and then in terms of social emotional well-being. So we started the process, we engaged the principals, and they were, of course, amazing. And we created about a 15-minute presentation that highlighted the major components of the strategic plan. We shared that presentation with them and then engaged them in focus groups. They then took that presentation to their staff during a staff meeting, went over the presentation with them, with every single staff member. We asked them to include SRVUSD, CSEA, and SEIU. And then they asked the teachers during work time to go to Thought Exchange in order to answer some of the questions. We also asked the principals and some of the assistant principals to engage students in focus groups, and this piece was really important. And we really emphasized to them, and they did a great job, but we really emphasized this idea that we need a diverse set of students in this focus group. We don't want to go back to the students who are always volunteering, and it's important to hear their voices as well. But we really wanted to hear from that student that, they have something to say, but they're not going to volunteer for a group like this, right? And so they reached out specifically to all different kinds of students in order to garner input. And then, as you can see here, Terry Caney and Denise Jennison led an amazing external engagement process as well. And so with that, 15-minute presentation, we were able to give that to all of the groups that you see there up on the slide. And so not only did we hear from them about the strategic direction of the district and what their thoughts were, we were also able to communicate at least the beginnings of our strategic plan. And you can see the wide range of organizations, from the San Ramon Chamber of Commerce to PFLAG to the PTA presidents to the Exceptional Education Committee. So this slide contains all of the participation information for Thought Exchange. And if you focus on the last row, so what this table is essentially saying is that 8,000 stakeholders went on to Thought Exchange. Almost 8,500 provided thoughts. So they answered our questions that we talked about earlier. And this number was really amazing to me. The thoughts were rated 170,000 times. So you can see that people were very active, very engaged with Thought Exchange, and that was a great thing. Now, it was fun going through all that data, but it was great to have some people, and maybe they didn't have ideas, but other ideas really resonated with them, and then they would score those. And then, of course, we had our focus groups. So we were able to talk to almost 1,000 people, again, in that small group setting, where we were really able to dig a little bit more deeply, make that personal connection with that student or with that staff member or with that community member, and really dig into what they see their vision of the district being. And then this diagram is really just kind of an overall kind of summary of the approach we took with regard to the engagement process. So it was kind of an inside-out approach. So of course, we started with our needs analysis, started really with the superintendent, of course, all of you back earlier this semester, and then kind of went out from there. I wanted to highlight that. So what did we hear? So here's the fun part. So before on, what I really want to emphasize to you and really to the community members who may be watching is that we have read every single piece of data. We have read every single piece of data multiple times. And I know, in fact, Dr. Malloy has done that many times because we've talked about it. And it's actually really a fun process because it's so interesting to hear what people have to say, and it's such a wide-ranging group. But I just really want to assure all of you that if our stakeholders took the time to answer these questions, we wanted to make sure we read as a district team, all of Cabinet and Ed Services, that we read and processed every single comment. And really, we not only want to honor their time, but we really wanted to understand with all of this information, really, what were you trying to tell us, right? So up here is kind of a sampling of some of the patterns that we observed. Now, this is just student feedback, okay? And so when we looked across all of our data sources and spent hours analyzing and categorizing and analyzing and categorizing, these are some of the patterns that rose to the top. So for example, one of the main themes with students was really this idea that they wanted to have a sense of belonging. They wanted to feel connected to their school campus. And I think probably if you're like me, you're thinking, well, that makes sense. Of course they want to feel connected. But they took it a step further, which was really interesting to myself and many of my colleagues. And what they said was, you know, I might feel a sense of belonging on campus, but I know that others don't. You know, I know that sometimes the people might look a little bit different or act a little bit different, that they might not feel as connected to campus as they possibly could, or as that person does. And so I really appreciated that students were not only thinking about their own sense of belonging, but were thinking about the belonging of others. Another key component for the students was this idea of additional social emotional supports. And when they think of additional social emotional supports, they really think of counselors. So they talked about the needs of counselors and really wanting, you know, when they are upset about something or they're stressed about something and they need someone to go talk to, they really want somebody to be available to talk to and to process that event. And then in terms of academics, they were pretty clear. They really wanted more freedom. They wanted choice. They wanted flexibility. And it was both in the classroom with regard to what they were learning, but especially how they were learning. You know, some of them talked about learning styles and how I want to be able to go into a classroom and the teacher knows my learning style and could meet me there. I thought that was really interesting and so insightful on the part of our students. But they also wanted more courses and programs offering across the school, you know, different things that they're interested in that might not be prevalent at any high school, but they're really interested in it, and that's their passion, and they want to be able to explore that. In terms of staff feedback, definitely a recurring theme was this idea of smaller class sizes. And so we kind of dug a little bit deeper, of course, especially in the focus groups, to say, you know, you say smaller class sizes, what does that mean exactly? Like, what do you want the smaller class sizes for? And not surprisingly, they really want to be able to provide as much support for students' academic health as for their social emotional well-being. And they feel like in order to do that, they need the smaller class sizes so they can really work one-on-one or one-on small group particular students. Like the students, they also ask for additional mental health supports, the counselors and social workers. And then we also heard a lot about adding more visual and performing arts to our curriculum, especially at the elementary level. And I thought that was interesting because it fits very well with another theme, which is the equitable allocation of resources. And this idea that our curriculum really needs to be consistent across schools. So in terms of our community feedback, again, social emotional support was definitely a theme, but there was a slight twist on it. They wanted additional support, but they also wanted schools to do more in the area of teaching things like resiliency, stress management. You know, they seem to realize, hey, we know our kids are going to be stressed. We get it. How can we help them manage that stress and not necessarily just avoid it all the time? again, this idea of campus culture, sense of belonging for all students, race, religion, LGBTQ+, regardless of those. And of course, increased consistency across instruction and assessment. So phase 4. So one of the things that we really wanted to do tonight, in addition to kind of talking patterns that we just talked about, we really want to continue to refine our priorities for moving forward. And so, you know, one of the common themes, of course, and not surprisingly in our community, is passion. There was passion on part of our students, passion on part of our staff, and there's passion on part of our community to really support the district in becoming the absolute best district it can be. And that's, I know, why, you know, many of us love being in SRVUSD. A lot of the items that came out of the stakeholder engagement groups really dealt with the how. So for example, if we want our students to be strong socially and emotionally, how we are going to do that, we're going to add counselors, right? We want to provide support in that area. How are we going to do it? We would add more arts, because art has been proven to help students from a social emotional standpoint. What we really want to discuss, you know, tonight, and really continuing to have this discussion, is the what. So what are we really seeking to accomplish and why? So we have a lot of ideas for the what, right? For the how. We got a lot of feedback, really, really great feedback. Add more counselors, reduce class sizes, right? That's how we achieve these things. But if we take it up a level and we ask, what do we really want and why do we want that? And once we're able to do that, then we'll be able to set crystal clear goals that are measurable, that we are able to monitor their progress over time, and have very, very clear outcomes that we want to see achieved. So but before we get to the discussion, we wanted to go on a bit and just talk a little bit about how the stakeholder engagement really helped us increase our clarity with regard to the 3 components. So with regard to equity, for example, you know, some might say, I want to diversify the curriculum or have more books by diverse authors. That's great. Probably the how, but really the why and the what is that they want equity to be a way of being. They don't want it to be something else that they do. They don't want it to be 1 month in February, right? They want it to be embedded into the culture. In terms of our increased clarity with deep learning, we're learning that students really they don't just want to pick their classes or have freedom inside their classes, and that's really important. But when we look at that from a different angle, what we're really seeing is that they want to own their own learning. They want to have more agency over that, and they want to find purpose in it. They want to see themselves. They want it to be relevant to them in their future. And then with regard to social emotional well-being, that's somewhat similar to equity in that really what we're hearing with, you know, things like more counselors is it needs to be the center of what we do. So that social emotional well-being isn't just that we start a meeting with a 5-minute mindful moment activity, which I do and I love, but we can't stop there, right? It has to really be embedded in how we think about how we do school. So in terms of next steps, we're already in the process of aligning the input, some of the input that you saw today. We have been looking across stakeholders, again, to find some themes that are emerging. And then we are aligning that with our 3 different areas of equity, deep learning, and social well-being. We then are in the process of creating super clear goal statements that are, again, measurable and articulate, again, what we want to accomplish, why we want to accomplish it. And then an extremely important piece of this is our principals and our teachers and our staff members, because they will have to go take the overarching district plan and really mold it to meet what they need at their schools based on their local context. They know their learners. They know their community. They know what the needs are. And that's really what the fall looks like, how we support them in really developing a, dare I say, robust plan about how they are going to create specific goals based on the larger district vision. And then just an example here of kind of what I'm talking about. You can see a really clear goal statement. The goal statement really does have the what and the why. So we want to create, and this is just a sample, create safe, equitable, and caring instructional environments to ensure all students can achieve success and find pride and enjoyment in their learning. Because when students enjoy their learning, they explore, create, innovate, and apply their skills. So you can see the what in terms of the learning environment, and you can see the why, because we want to support students who enjoy their learning so that they could create, innovate, apply. And then the how, potential hows, you can see next to the bullet points there. So adding, counselors or support staff, more small group instruction, access to technology, more of a sense of belonging on campus, etc. So we just wanted to kind of give you a sampling of what's coming next. And then I will turn it over to Dr. Malloy.
Thank you so much. And at this point, President Ordway, what we thought is we would just listen to you, realizing that we'll take notes on the thoughts that you wish to share. We're not, as I said, looking for any vote tonight. Any thoughts and ideas we will consider and incorporate so that we can bring something back to you that reflects the direction that you wish to provide to this process. So I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Malloy. And thank you, Deb. Any thoughts? Reflections? Yeah, Laura?
So a few things, a few what's, I guess, and you can guide me a little bit with this if I get off with that. But one of the things is really ensuring that we empower every student, each and every student, to be able to find their joy in learning. And a lot of what was talked about was that from the student perspective was that, more opportunity, more choice, more opportunity to discover what they love. And so kind of coming from that lens of, that's the how, right? But that using those things to be able to create academic fulfillment and empowerment for our students, I think is extremely important. I also would like to make sure that when we're talking about these goal statements, that we're also looking at accountability and how we kind of, do that, the full circle, and make sure that that we're really looking at what we want to do, but then also figuring out the strategy to make sure that we ensure that we do it and that there's that implementation process so things don't get stuck along the way. And then also, in terms of belonging and inclusion, really thinking about the celebration of belonging, the celebration of diversity and inclusion, and seeing it as a joyful thing and not just a thing that we're offering, but something that we're really allowing students to and staff and our community to really see the value in it, for every single person, not just for those students that maybe aren't always at the center, but really seeing that value of bringing those marginalized communities into the center and how the value that gives to those that are already in the center. And so looking at it, beyond just bringing in, but really celebrating all of the diversity, right? I think that's it for now.
Any other thoughts or reflections, comments, Shelley?
Well, first I want to say that I am so impressed with the outreach and the community in stakeholder engagement. I have, in my history in this district of 20 years, I have never seen that kind of an effort put forth to engage not only our parent community and our staff, but the community as a whole, and our students, who have probably the most important voice of all, as far as I'm concerned. I think we're in a good place and we have a lot of good priorities. I think we may have to prioritize some of those as we do a deeper dive on how we implement this and what things we can accomplish. There's some things in there that we accomplish that might not have a dollar value to them. And so it's just a change in our culture and the way that we do things. But some of these other things are going to have some fiscal results that we're going to have to deal with, and so that we can continue to deliver these things to our students in the community after these one-time dollars that we're getting from the pandemic and from the state are no longer here. So I think we have to think about the most important things and how we continue to deliver those. One of the things that struck me that is really important, I think, dealing with my own children and hearing about making the learning relevant to them. Because I know my son is like, well, why do I have to learn this? What am I learning that? I'm never going to use it again, you know, that kind of a thing. But really coming to a place of making, especially for him, it was math. So when you get into the higher math, then why am I doing this? So I think being able to make that relevant to them and going forward so that they can be more engaged, because every student isn't going to be as engaged in certain subjects as others. And the more we can make it relevant to their life going forward, it's going to be better. But I'm really impressed with how much feedback that you got and what you did with it. And I'm excited about this plan going forward. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Sure. Yeah, just based upon what Shelley was just saying, I think of in terms of building relevancy. You know, because two different people may feel that something is relevant in different ways. The way a student might look at whether it's relevant or not is going to be different, possibly, from the way that their teachers look at what's relevant for their education. So how you build and create that relevancy, I think, is the point that Shelley was making. Another foundation that I think is going to be really important moving forward is to make sure that we've built an environment of trust. And the trust really starts with the collection already. Because if the sense from anyone is that, okay, we've now checked off a box, you know, we let everyone have their say, but then we do something different. Or someone doesn't feel comfortable that they're in a safe enough place to really share their feelings on whatever the topic might be. And I think particularly with this last year with the COVID, we've had a lot of conflict. And we really need to rebuild a level of trust within our community. And it's not that it's not there, and it may be based on the emotion that's been with us this last year. But I think on a going forward basis, that sense of, if we ask you a question, there's a reason for it. And at the same time, a recognition that these aren't promises. These are a direction, it's a vision. And I think from the last slide, the importance of measuring, like Shelley spoke in terms of accountability. You know, whatever goals we do develop, they have to be measurable. It has to be something that, it could be a stretch goal, but without measurement, to be able to demonstrate first that we've listened, and secondly that these are things that make sense for us to move forward as we balance all of the political and reality of finances and everything else that we deal with as a school district. The one other thing that we may want to consider is what we've done so far with our talking to our community is what's going on outside our community. Basically, an environmental scan of some of these topics to see how others may have performed. You know, are there some best practices that we can be learning from as we continue to develop our own sense of direction going forward? And again, I hope people see that and agree that we are a phenomenal school district. The academics here are first rate. We recognize the need for improved safety in our schools, that our kids feel safe, that our employees feel listened to, that there is a sense of trust. But I think there's also the opportunity to look outside and see if others have done things that we would want to incorporate as well, and not just build from within ourselves, but to see if there are other practices that might worth considering.
And I agree. What's been presented, and the only thing I'd add is I think the why is very important. I think that the why it goes to, right, helping our students understand the relevancy. Why do I have to take this calculus class if I'm not going to be a math major, right? But we also need to, I think, explain the why, probably to us, right? To staff, to community, even our district, right? Staff, we need to understand the why, so that we can build that trust instead of just saying, no, you can't do this, or yeah, this is the way we move. We need to explain the why in all that we do. So I think that that's very, very important. And then Rachel.
I would like to echo the other board members, just awe about how extensive this engagement was. The fact that as many community members engaged on thought exchange, I think it's more than even staff, was truly impressive. And I think it shows how important education is to our community and how important our school system is to our community. Many people often say it's the heart of the community. I appreciate all of the things that were in the presentation and the ideas that came forward. With regard to the social, closer still, I feel like I'm going to swallow it. With regard to the social emotional learning piece, I think back to when my own kids were in school, but especially elementary school. I think back to my own experience in school. So much of that social emotional safety came from a classroom community that really felt like a community. And so much of that is the teacher, the power that the teacher has in setting that tone for the family, for that school, or for that period. And so I want us to be careful that we don't just say, oh, use your terminology, the how is counselors. Because counselors are great, but I view counselors as a tier that comes in when a kid is troubled or has a problem, or what's in that classroom isn't working, or what at home, or whatever. But I don't want to lose sight of the importance of, in the social emotional piece, is equipping our teachers with the support they need to be that amazing maker of that community in their classroom. And I'm not at all being critical about what they're doing now. They're amazing. But the feedback that's coming out through this is saying that everyone, including they, need more support there. And part of it may be the stresses that the time plus all the equity concerns are bringing in there. And I think it's a perfect dovetail with the equity argument, because we need every child in that classroom to feel like they're part of the community. So what's missing for that one or that one or that one? And so I really think that's the heart of it. When kids feel like they belong and there's joy in the learning, yes, relevancy is important, and especially when they're younger, I don't think you have to convince them as much because they're learning new things and it's neat. But being able to do the tasks they're asked for is critical for keeping them engaged. If they're being stretched farther than they're capable of, they need that support. So all three pillars are so interrelated, and I'm just so hopeful that the plans you have for MTSS can bring that all together with a lens that's this community, and then this child needs a little more here, or that child needs a little more there. I love the idea of more choice for students. I think it's a natural tendency to say, oh, they all need this and they all need that, and before you know it, there's no choice left in their schedule. So I think holding on to that, letting the ones who want to pursue the arts do that, music, coding, whatever floats their boat, also with in mind of what comes next, whether it's college or some other post-secondary option, because the relevancy even about college to life, to career, to that you should find joy in your work is a really important component. And I really think this is an opportunity to kind of stop that high schoolers doing school that we've heard so much about. We want them to take the classes they want because they're the classes they want, not because of how it's positioning them to get into a particular school. So I just think this is a great opportunity to come together as a community and focus on what's most important for our kids.
Thank you for all of, I'm sorry.
Sorry, can I add just another couple of quick thoughts? One of the things I want to make sure that's not lost in this is the success that we've had going forward. We talked about this a little bit before. For the last few years, we've had our framework for excellence. And when I talk to folks about what we're trying to teach our kids, there's the subjects, but at the same time, one of the things that I usually refer to is the 4, 5, 6 C's of when our kids leave us, we want to make sure that they have a foundation in critical thinking, communications, collaboration, creativity, curiosity. Those are the ones that we've identified in the past. And I want to make sure that folks don't think that we're throwing all of that out as we redefine what our strategic pillars are. Or not even redefine, it's really continue to build upon those. And so, again, build upon the foundation that has worked for us and continuously improve that. And that's the way I see this process. And I hope that that's what we can also communicate out to all of our stakeholders.
I see those C's as being a part of the deep learning, right? The deep learning pillar. And
Absolutely.
Can I ask you a question about the access to art? Did that primarily come from the elementary school level, or was that from pretty even through all levels, middle and high?
It was really much more of a focus at the elementary level. But it wasn't just the elementary, parents or students or teachers saying it. It was K-12. Exactly. Yeah, no, that was really a key finding. It came out oftentimes through the art discussion. There's other discussions too about why does this school have more of this than that? And, how are we using our resources in an equitable way so that there's increased consistency in what students get across the district?
hey, Dr. Malloy.
So just some closing summary thoughts based upon what I heard or what we heard, and then we'll be working with these. I'll start by saying that all effective improvement is on a foundation of the successes that presently exist. So I want to be absolutely clear that that is our foundation. And being newer to our community, I'm quite excited about leading in a community that has had such successes. So I want to be really clear about that. The next piece, though, is that any effective improvement process also incorporates cultural change. And cultural change means attitudes and norms and processes and such. In other words, if it's going to be transformational, it gets at the heart of what we believe. And that's why change is oftentimes so difficult and why it must be so carefully implemented. And it's not easy, which is why status quo can oftentimes reign. So when we bring this back to you, we'll be trying to paint the picture of what the data tells us, not only the stakeholder engagement data, but also our own other data sources around what may need to be the cultural change and why. Again, by saying that, it doesn't imply anything negative. It's just the next step on the road. The concepts of empowerment, choice, discovery, joy. That came out in many of your comments. I pulled them from Trustee Bratt, but they also were emphasized by many of you. I want to speak a little bit about accountability, just so that we're clear about the steps. When I said that between August and December, we really would like our sites, our school sites and our departments to really engage in conversation around this work, focusing on the students that that particular school serves in light of these directions, understanding the needs of the staff in that particular school, and determining where the school needs to focus. The next step is to determine what evidence is going to be collected in order for us to show that we've made progress in these areas. Though sometimes evidence can live at the district level. For the most part, district improvement comes 36 campuses, all focused within this frame, showing us how they've improved specific to that community. And it goes even further, specific to each and every student, which is why the MTSS model, in my opinion, is so exceptionally important. And personalizing learning as much as we possibly can, even though we have been speaking about that for decades, is part of what we're thinking about as we bring this back to you. So accountability is going to be key. Evidence and is going to be necessary, but that's going to be something that we would like that next fall frame to work through, so that it's not a district thing coming down on 36 campuses. And especially as the newer superintendent, I don't want to communicate that we're kind of coming in and shifting everything on a dime because of all of the context pieces. A new superintendent, a pandemic that just hit us, even though it has provided us some opportunities, as hard as it has been. We're paying really a close attention, and forgive me to use an educational kind of theory word, but there's a lot to be learned from implementation improvement science. We'll talk more about that over time, but just know that we're really thinking about the human dynamics of change and the components that are required and the supports that are necessary. But the second point is always, what is it that our students need? What is it that our students deserve? What is it that we're already providing? And how are we going to fill those gaps to get to the next place? The financial realities is something we're also paying attention to. That's why we've added that poem you heard me speak about at the beginning of this presentation. We're looking at what collectively access looks like. We're looking at what it costs based upon what presently exists, the funding sources available to us, the funding sources that come from other places, such as our foundations, for example. And that's all a part of this discussion. I'm not promising an analysis of that for June, but I am promising an analysis of that before January. So that's all part of the plan that you're going to see. The concept of relevance is also important, and we heard that. I want to touch on the comment of trust. That shared leadership component demands that all stakeholders, including parents, shared leadership is not just about shared leadership, have voice in this process. Rebuilding and building trust is key to any improvement measure, and we're going to incorporate that into the shared component that I spoke about. Before I leave the concept of relevance, student voice and agency, owning learning, is what makes learning relevant. When something is done to students, and by the way, there are still going to be high standards, high expectations where they are and what their particular kids need and what learning their needs. So the variation comes. It's not cookie cutter. You set the direction, Our job is to support principals working with their staff, engaging their community, focusing on their students. Forward with that direction. But then how do we know we're successful? Because we bring back to you the results of that. It won't be everybody doing the exact same thing. And that's another important piece that I want to share based upon your comments. I appreciated, Trustee Hurd, the concept that it's not just about the specialists, even though we love and appreciate our specialists. We all have to own this. And our professional learning all has to connect to this. And the questions and the invitations and the supports we provide is all of us to different degrees. And that is paramount and part of all of this. I love the 6 C's because that is the definition of deep learning. We have a challenge, though, if I can be a little bit candid or bold. We don't always measure the 6 C's in the standardized ways we measure things. Kids can sometimes get to other places through a real ability, and I'm going to be, as I said, candid, to do school the way school has always been operating. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're going to continue to do the foundational pieces. I'm not in any way suggesting otherwise. But the whole concept of ensuring that the collaboration, the creativity, the critical thinking, the communication, that all of those are part and parcel of the work. That is the definition of deep learning. It is existing in our schools right now. Insights, if I've captured them properly, will incorporate into what it is that we bring back to you on June. So President Orway, just so that I can be absolutely clear, I tried to summarize with a few editorials of my own. Is there anything that you believe has been missed based upon what you shared?
I don't think so. I think you captured our discussion pretty well. I do have a public comment, audience. Want to get their feedback. So Helen of Doherty Valley would like to speak on this item.
We have to dictate everything in the name of equity. What is equity? Right now, my school district is led by a president. I believe she was born in communist China, and I'm from Taiwan. Please let me finish. And this is what I mean. There is no equity. My right to be able to speak freely has been taken away. You have turned off my microphone last time. During the equity meeting, while you guys put me in a breakout room, there was a parent with the last name Yu who was harassing people who are able to speak with the right of the Brown Act. Yesterday, I was assaulted at 99 Ranch Market in Pleasanton by a young man from communist China because he accused me I was filming him when I noticed I had my cell phone out of my hand. And then he called the police on me. That's today's equity. Our district is made up of many, many different kinds of people. There are people who were beaten up in Hong Kong just to speak what is the truth. Here, I hear people behind me judging me already. They don't know my reality. They don't know I'm afraid to now go shop at 99 Ranch Market, which was established by the Taiwanese community back in 1984, one year after I immigrated
Please
to
wrap
this
up your
country.
comments.
Hypocrisy, safety. Will a student be allowed to speak freely without being put on a list to be arrested on a flight to Hong Kong? Thank you.
Okay, so moving on. 9.2, facilities update. And Assistant Superintendent Danny Hillman will assist us. There he is.
Good evening. Okay, I'm going to try to do this I want to say quickly, but there are some things in here that I think they're not repetitive, but I wanted to give a primer essentially about the facilities department, some of the successes we've had in the past, what we're currently doing right now, and then kind of where we're going. So on the next slide, you'll see my hope is that you, after watching this presentation, will be able to answer some of these questions. What does the facilities department do? Where does the funding come from to do the work? And what is the department working on right now? So the primary function of the facilities department is the construction and renovation of district facilities. The slide doesn't do really justice, this one bullet, managing all building projects in the district, because there's so much involved with managing a building project. Everything from design, that includes the loose ideas, the conceptual design, all the way down to the actual construction documents themselves of how something gets built, the engineering, the compliance, the construction management, the training of staff on the equipment that's in the or the new structure, the contracts to pull off the actual construction itself, funding applications to the state, which I'll talk more about in a second, pre-qualification of the contractors, the public bidding process, and then the eventual closeout. Every single project has every single one of those steps and way more that I haven't even mentioned. So this one bullet doesn't do justice to what a project manager and the facilities department really runs, but that's our essential mission. We're there to manage all the building projects. The two major types of projects that we have are either a modernization project or a new construction project. New construction is pretty straightforward. It would be an example of any of the new schools that we've made or built over the last decade or so, the most recent of which is Bella Vista Elementary. We'll show a picture of that in a second. And then modernization projects, which the modernization term is really a state term about when funding is available after a building has been around for 25 years. And so we'll go in and modernize a full facility when it becomes eligible because we can capitalize on using some local dollars with some state dollars. Typically, the projects that we work on in facilities are involving more than a single trade or one contractor. So by comparison, we get confused with the maintenance department and vice versa. Over $371 million from various portions of this program that we have used on our facilities. And so you can see the largest number of new construction is $324.5 million. So this seems like a big number, and it is, and I'll show you how it relates to other schools in the state in just a second. On this slide, because it's bigger, the graph is from their website. I just wanted to show you in 2016, the last state bond that was issued and approved by the voters. There's a little red square there. It doesn't show very well, but it is unfunded. So the way this works is we put in an application, they approve our application, and then we wait for the money to become available. So everything that we put an application in for from the 1998, 2002, 2004, and 2006 state bonds, we got the money. That's what the orange and blue are showing you. In 2016, we have what they call an unfunded application that's been approved, but they haven't sold enough bonds yet to get to us. We're waiting in line. So once they continue to sell bonds, we'll get the money eventually to do a project that either we're waiting for or we've already done, and they're reimbursing us because we used all of our local money. And so we would take that money and then we put it into a different facilities project, kind of a pay it forward, if you will. So if you go to the next slide, I just gave a couple of talking points, but I wanted to highlight that pink bar on the previous slide because it's the only one where we have some unfunded. Everything else has been previously funded. So the SFP, we've been able to enhance local projects. I mentioned $375 million in 20 plus years, and we have $12.6 million right now in unfunded applications. So they're approved. We're just waiting for them to sell their state bonds, and that 12.6 will come to us. And then we'll continue to chip away at facilities projects that we have queued up and ready, and we'll tackle another project. One of those might be, for instance, the Monte Vista pool that we talked about on this stage a couple of months ago. So that's how we use the state dollars to our advantage to keep working on projects and keep chipping away at the needs of our schools and of our district. So on the next slide is the last one from DGS. I just wanted to show you this. So this is the same time frame all the way back from 1998. We are right there. That is 8th in the state. We are in the top 10 of 1,000 school districts for accessing state dollars. That's pretty remarkable, especially when you look at who's at number 1. They're the monster in the room, right? They're the elephant. They get the lion's share of the dollars. They've got a lot. When you have an entire section of the ed code devoted to your district, you're pretty big, and that's LA Unified, and that's okay. But I'm proud of us for being on this list because it means that we were aggressive, and I don't get to take the credit for that. That's the board's direction over a very long period of time. That's the previous directors and facilities, my predecessors in this role. We're all aggressive at going after state money wherever possible to maximize local bond dollars. And so that synergy between the two, coupled with massive growth in our district years ago in San Ramon Valley, have led to really an unprecedented amount of facilities dollars coming to us, which we've been able to make our facilities some of the best in the state. And so I'm very proud of that. And I wanted to highlight that because I want all of us to be proud about what we've been able to accomplish. It's, I think, one of the things that when people think about San Ramon Valley and the district, they think about our schools. They come on our campuses and they go, wow, it looks like a community college. And it's a, it's a high school or it's a stadium. So I just wanted to highlight that for everybody. And all of these graphs are all available on the OPSC website, publicly available. You can filter, you can search, you can go by year, you can go by program. It's a pretty fun little dashboard to play with if you are interested. So on the next slide, I just wanted to get into very quickly what we're working on now. So we do have some projects left over from Measure D that we're not done with yet. We're finishing, we'll probably need this summer and 2 more to finish. We still have a 2 classroom replacement at Alamo Elementary. That's going to be going out to bid very soon. The California High School kitchen renovation is in design right now. We still have a couple of things left to do here at this school, San Ramon Valley High School. We have a power pole that we need to get underground, and that's going to happen maybe this summer, but probably next. Sycamore Valley Elementary has their carpet installation, and the reason I wanted to point that out is that Sycamore Valley, along with 7 other elementary schools and Charlotte Wood, have been in a modernization cycle that we knew we needed 2 summers to take care of. Last summer was supposed to be Sycamore's second and last summer. But because of COVID, we couldn't do a couple of things. And one of them was the flooring. In order to do carpet, all of the staff normally get time, boxes, and money to come in and pack up all their stuff. We temporarily store it, we change the flooring, we put it all back. They couldn't come back to campus because we shut everything down in March, the state shut down. So this had to be postponed another summer. So we'll be taking care of that this summer. Vista Grande Elementary, I have a picture of this. We have their modernization is done for the buildings, interior and exterior, but we have some covered walkways that need to be done and a shade structure in the kinder play yard. Alamo Elementary, there's a breezeway demolition there. We have a covered walkway that needs to be done. That's actually not a Measure D project. That's a maintenance project. And we've taken that on to help because there's some coordination pieces that are a little hard on the project management side. This is an example of how maintenance and facilities work together. Cal High, we're going to be putting some growth portables and do some site utilities. So this is a site that is within our overall district, even though our enrollment is declining. We do have a couple of individual schools that are getting bigger. Cal High is one of those. They're scheduled to continue to grow incrementally over the next few years. So we want to put some portable classrooms down there so that they can continue to not get cramped. A big one for our high school athletics, California, Monte Vista, San Ramon Valley High, synthetic turf is being replaced beginning this summer. I believe Cal High is first, but don't quote me on that. Our director, Erin, will kick me under the table if she was here, if I have that wrong. But California, I believe, starts first, and then we'll rotate to the other 2. We want to get the synthetic turf replaced. Monte Vista High swimming pool, we discussed. And then there's, this is an example of a venture school. We're doing a science and art classroom remodel there because there was a programmatic decision to take the Del Amigo educational program and relocate it to the venture campus. So there's some facilities renovations that need to be done to facilitate that so that we can have independent study and a continuation program exist on the same spot. So that's an example of, that's not Measure D. That's maybe some maintenance money. Maybe that's some of our funding, building fund 21. that pays for those sorts of things, but facilities takes the lead on that because there's design involved, multiple trades, et cetera, kind of that litmus test I told you about earlier. So there's all sorts of things on here, and this is just for summertime. This is stuff is all going to happen. Either going out to bid is already bid for this coming summer. A lot of stuff going on. So this is hard to read because it's small, but this gives you an idea visually about how we plan things. And so we showed you this past year, we left it on here, and you can see that we've highlighted June, July, and August, because this is our prime time for getting work done when kids and staff are not around. And so you can see we've color coded it to something that's complete versus something that's at bidding, or it's in DSA, which is the Division of State Architect, or dark blue, something that's actually in construction. And so you can see how we timeline all of the projects so that they're not overlapping and that we have the bandwidth to manage multiple things at the same time and not overwhelm ourselves and thus not do a good job with it. So this document and others like it are how we manage the flow of the projects. So no facilities presentation would be complete without some pictures. So I'll fly through these really quick, but some of these before and afters are some of my personal favorites. So hopefully you enjoy them. This was Bella Vista Elementary School, just basically at the groundbreaking. This is actually from standing in front of the school on a trumpet vine, the street that runs right in front of it. This is the before and this is the after. Here's Stone Valley Middle School before we did the construction and the demo. You can see that these are the old style 50s finger wings is what they call them. These were the classrooms that were demolished here, here, and here. This is the existing gym that was added during one of our previous measures. This is a fairly modern facility. And this was the old NPR. I want to highlight this thing for just a second because when we click to the next slide, that building's still there. This is the old NPR. This is the new NPR. How much bigger it is. New kitchen right here. So we were able to upsize the kitchen and NPR to match the enrollment at the school. This is the 2-story L-shaped building that has more classrooms than all those finger wings that we had on the previous photo. And we were able to centralize and give them a quad for good pedestrian flow and a central meeting spot for lunch, increase supervision and security from the staff and the administration during lunchtime and egress and ingress. It was a really, really great project. Here's San Ramon Valley High School. We're there right now in a different building, of course, but this is a shot from the building across. This is actually the groundbreaking ceremony. And that's the same shot with the building done. I'm gonna go back for just a second and show you this. This building here ended up being demolished too because we needed it, the footprint for the main building, and this one too. So what you can't see is that this entire space used to be classrooms. This was a building pad. This was a building pad. We tore down 45 or more classrooms, if memory serves. Individual classrooms probably spread out over something like 8 or 9 buildings. And we replaced it with this thing. And it is absolutely beautiful and gorgeous and one of my favorite projects. Some other things we've been able to do with the current Measure D is we did bleacher replacements at all 3 of the high schools. Doherty didn't need it because they're so new, but this is the home side of Monte Vista, the home side of Cal High, and the home side of San Ramon High, where we are right now. This is another good one, good before and after. This is the Cal High pedestrian bridge, which if you've been around a while, you've probably heard about this thing. This is on the Iron Horse Trail and goes over the creek into the neighborhood. And all of these beams under here were rotted, et cetera. So anyway, we had it replaced and it looks beautiful. It was great. Contractor did a really, really good job. Someone that's local and was the low bidder, and they did fantastic for us, and the community was very happy. This is Green Valley Elementary. So we did the interiors on the summer 1. The summer 2, we did the courtyard and the in between the buildings. And so we were able to renovate this. There was actually a portable right here, believe it or not, that we didn't need anymore. So we got rid of that during the demo. And then connected to this was the kinder play yard, which was on the other side of the building. And so a whole new play structure was put in. You can see that this is one of the design elements that we're using now at elementary, especially at the lower grades. It turns the blacktop and the playground area into a tactile space that kids can interact with, which is way better than just some white paint on some asphalt. So we were very happy with this. Parents were involved in this. This is a good example of collaboration with the school site. They pitched in some fundraising money also to enhance. They wanted to buy some of the equipment pieces, and it was a good collaboration. Here's the backside of Stone Valley. If you'd been there during the construction, We had to lay down a bunch of interim housing portables. We brought them on, about 40 of them or so. Well, that took this field, and we had to put the field back. So when we put it back, we turned it 180 degrees so that the grass area here in the bottom of the picture actually can be used as a soccer field if you go north to south off the screen. Before, the diamond was in the foreground of the picture, which prevented that from happening. So now the school has 3 diamonds, 3 skins, and a soccer field that they didn't have before. So these are the types of things that we try to do. We try to design up or engineer up, if you will, when we're putting things back. This is the SRVHS multi-use field. Same thing. We had, I think, something like 50 portables on the grass field. It was a natural turf field in this location, rows of portables. You may have been here when that happened. We owed them a field, so we put back an artificial turf field. It doesn't use rubber pellets. We've upgraded to using cork, which is a better playability and a better feel. It's also not as hot. And we were able to give them a legitimate JV softball, JV baseball, and it's lined for lacrosse and for soccer, and it's year round. Something the school has never had before because they were always having to worry about inclement weather. If it was rained out, they couldn't use it. So now they can use it. And it's a huge, huge upgrade for athletics, for PE. Band could do it. Anybody can use the field in all types of weather. It's a great improvement. Also at San Ramon High, over years and years, there used to be a caretakers building here where we had people that would watch the schools for us and live on campus years and years ago. Portables would come and go. The fence line along Iron Horse Trail needed to be replaced. And so we did that after all the construction was done. We just finished this a couple of months ago. And it's a good example of what we want to do at all of our schools that are on the Iron Horse Trail. If we have a school that borders the Iron Horse Trail, this is eventually something we're going to need to we need to talk about doing, because we do have fence lines that are in different states of disrepair. Some are okay, some aren't. We want to do this when they are needed to be replaced. Montevideo, this was a combination of Measure D dollars along with some growth dollars. Montevideo is one of the couple of schools, like I mentioned at Cal High, that's expected to get bigger. So we took the back parking lot, made a better drop-off for kinder, made more parking, created a new childcare pad, building pad, and also added some classrooms for their growth, which was a great multi-funded project. It's complicated, but it was well worth doing it this way because we were able to get way more than we could have if we had just used Measure D dollars as an example. Right now at Twin Creeks, they're under their modernization. So this is showing new windows here, and we're keeping the rooftops because they're still good because they're the metal, but we do have a couple buildings there that needed all new roofs, all new siding, all new windows. And this is an example here of that's a modernization in progress. We're doing 2 to 3 classrooms at a time, moving the students into another portion of campus. When we're done, we move them back in and move another set of teachers out so we can work all year round. This was something that we just finished this past year. It's a hard picture, but they're right here. The light poles, the stadium lights had to be replaced. We had 2 campuses that still needed it. Improved lighting, LED, minimal bleed of light into the community, so it's focused downward, and they're much, much brighter, so the playability is wonderful at night. Improved capability across for all sports, really, really great. And we were able to do that just recently in the past 6 months or so that got completed. And we also, of course, wanted to do that before we replaced the field. Don't want to replace the field and then drive on it to go replace poles. So we did it in the correct order. And then Sycamore Valley, as I mentioned, they're doing their carpet this summer, but this is a shot of the interior of the classroom that's already been updated. That was updated a year ago. New paint, new countertops, some sink, some ADA stuff. Charlottewood, unique situation. I'll briefly just tell you about this. We have 8 middle schools. Charlottewood was the only one where the band class was on the NPR stage. All the others had a dedicated band room. So we took the opportunity during the modernization. We needed to put in a building for the library improvements. While the library was being modernized, we had to put a building down. So rather than doing something temporary, we added one permanently. We'll move the library over there. When the library is done, we'll move the library back. And then we'll put a different classroom in here, which frees up a spot for the band in the main building. And so that's a project and a different type of example of how we use, if we have interim housing money, which is to temporarily house students while we're doing construction, we try to capitalize and keep it if it adds benefit to the campus. This is an example of that. Rancho Romero, very similar to Sycamore Valley in their modernization, paint, carpet, interior spaces, exterior paint. Rancho had an interesting feature. It was very popular to do 3 walls, and the 4th wall was a big sliding glass door with glass floor to ceiling, very energy inefficient. So we took the opportunity to basically build the 4th wall when we modernized that school. That was done in 2019. Monte Vista High School pool we've talked about, and the covered walkway at Vista Grande, which I mentioned. This piece right here is made of wood on metal, and it's rotted, needs to be replaced. The utilities run on top of the walkways, which was a common design theme. That way they were accessible. If they ever needed to be fixed, they wouldn't be underground. And this is something that we'll be replacing as the final part of the Vista Grande modernization this summer. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Danny, for all that. Yeah. Any comments?
Well, I just want to say, after spending 3 years on the Facilities Oversight Committee, that I am so impressed with the level of professionalism, the follow-up, the interaction between the Facilities Oversight Committee and district personnel, yourself and Gary Black, over the years, and how complex, I mean, it was a whole new world to me, and how complex it is to try to manage these huge projects and how well it's been done. And when we look around at other districts, one here close by who is now in dire straits as far as their facilities because they're so far in the millions of dollars in debt around some of the things that they're trying to do, and how well we have been able to use at every turn the state funds and manage those in such a way to maximize the benefit to the school community. I want to commend you and everybody on the facilities department. And the Facilities Oversight Committee has people on it who are so dedicated and who are so knowledgeable and have managed all these projects like they were their own money, really. And it really is, I don't think the community can, they see these things appear, we're doing building, but I don't think anybody can really appreciate how complex it is and how difficult it can be sometimes to try to manage these big projects. And I have to say, I'm with you. I spent from start to finish on the building here at San Ramon Valley High School, and it's by far my favorite project. So it came out beautiful, but there was a lot of time and energy and many, many hours by many, many people to make it what it was. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, just to add to that, I first want to thank the Facilities Department for all of the hard work. It's interesting when you look over time, how important it has been to this school district, the support that we've received from the community through our bond programs. I mentioned, the building that we had, even the building that we're in right now, 20, 25 years ago, I recall going into the library, which was at the back side of the campus. The tiles were falling from the roof, dripping wet. All of the bookshelves were on rollers. And the reason for that, one of the walls was a collapsible, movable wall. When you open up the wall, on the other side was the stage. And for any performance that this school wanted to do, they had to move all the bookshelves to the far end of the library, open up the retractable, and then put down folding chairs for any performance that wanted to occur on this site. Same type of issue happened here with the Commons building. You'd come here on a rainy day and kids were lined up in the hallway, sitting on the floor because it's the only dry place to eat your lunch. So this school alone is a tremendous example of how the schools in our district have evolved over time because of first the support from the community and then the great work of our facilities and administration in utilizing state dollars when available to really continue to enhance those projects. The one concern that I have going forward is the direction of the state has been with facility dollars to overlook a lot of schools like ours. And it's not that I'd take away anything from those who have a lot more work that needs to be done and not the same means for being able to get dollars from their community. But it really puts a lot more pressure on us to look to ourselves to be able to fund these type of projects, because even with large facility bonds from the state these days, we're only going to get a fraction, if that, when it comes to doling out those dollars. So it becomes even that much more important for us to, use our dollars as effectively and as efficiently as we can, maintain our facility, and really continue to celebrate with our community the advancements that we've made in terms of building and then maintaining these facilities over time. So Danny, thank you for you and all of your team.
Yeah, that in mind, thank you, because just like Shelley, I recently learned about all the complexities. I mean, I guess with, not kind of multiple, right, buildings and projects and stuff on 35, 36 properties, sites, that's, when you're done with one or all 35 or 36, then you have to kind of go back for and within the time you need maintenance, right, in order so that we can actually save on certain monies and spend it wisely. So thank you very much.
I add something to
Mhm.
my time on the facilities advisory committee goes way back to like 2 years after the '02 bond passed. And it was soon after, like within the year, when we had brought really professional staff in-house to manage those projects. And that really is something we should thank the board at that time for, because that made a key difference in growing into the very professional department that you now run. And I just think that's an important thing to add, that many school districts don't bring those services in-house. And they're at the mercy of consultants, and there are good ones and there are bad ones. And that's probably why some of their projects or their bond measures get upside down, like what Shelley was referring to. But as our bond money has ebbed and flowed, your department has had to expand and contract. And I just think it's a true testament to you and your predecessors about how well all of that has been managed. So hats off and to your whole team for the great job you do all the time. It was really nice to have this presentation. I mean, facilities was such a focus for so long. We haven't had this presentation. So thank you for thinking of it.
If nothing else, we do have a public comment on 9.2. Helen?
So I just witnessed excellence. I am personally very affected by all these developments, because when my family first moved here, even though we have a house in the Doherty Valley area, the schools were so impacted. We literally had no schools to go to. So we were diverted to Danville, to other areas which had older facilities. And it is actually, when I'm looking at the pictures, the memories, come back to me. I want to thank the communities that, really are outside of my city boundaries for taking my children, and for, now I feel that the investment we put into communities will eventually reward us. So the phenomenon of population decline in our school district will be a short-term phenomenon. And because we take care of our community, that our community will be rewarded eventually. So I also want to concur with Trustee Hurd. I would like to hear the names of the former board members mentioned. I remember Trustee Hurd, you're also on it, and so is Trustee Mintz, I believe, and also former Trustee Marvel, I believe. Not sure about Trustee Jewett. Can we have a rundown of those names? And I don't really know the full name of this gentleman. I think he's excellent. I would like to know his name. And then after that, I have some news to share with you. Right now, I believe California has a 38 billion state surplus that our governor, who is being recalled, doesn't seem to want to spend it in education. If Superintendent Malloy and the Board of Trustees here can pull some political strings to get that money funneled into our district, $38 billion is a lot to go around. And I would like to ask for a specific facility that right now we don't have, actually two of them. One is infirmary room. When I was an exchange student in college overseas, their institutions have a facility called infirmary room. It's for students who are, infectious. Given the time we have just all gone through, we
Excuse me, Helen,
understand the
please wrap up your
importance
comments.
of an infirmary room. I would also like to see metal detector put in, as we know that there were people with knives in our community. So I think those are all very important area. And please keep up with air infiltration. And I would like to see fully fenced school property. Thank you so much.
May I answer Helen's question about who was on the board at that time?
Yes,
So I'm not sure if that whole decision would have been in 2002 or 2003, but Joan Buchanan would have been on the board, Paul Gardner, Greg Marvel, Bill Clarkson, and Mary Ann Gagan or Nancy Petzik. They had a handoff there.
And it's Assistant Superintendent Danny Hillman, who actually presented to us. So thank you. That's his name. I think that was also Helen's question. Okay. Moving on. 9.3, public comment for non-agenda items. Public comment will be limited to no longer than 3 minutes. The views expressed during public comment are those of the individual speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views of the board or district staff. The district believes in an inclusive, welcoming, and safe environment for the meetings for all of our community. The board respects each individual's rights to express ideas and opinions. Pursuant to applicable law and board policy, the board will not prohibit public criticism of the board or district. We kindly ask that when making public comment, you refrain from the use of profanity, exercise tolerance of others and their viewpoints, and exemplify model behavior. Please be mindful that the district students may be watching. You are encouraged to address the board and the public in a respectful manner such that all those observing, from children to adults, are made to feel welcome, safe, and respected. The board will not permit any disturbance or willful interruption of board meetings. Persistent or excessive disruption by any individual or group shall be grounds to terminate the privilege of addressing the board. Okay, so we have two cards. First one is Lacey Lowe.
Hello, esteemed board members. My name is Lacey Lowe, and I'm a Spanish teacher at Iron Horse Middle School. I am here to ask the board to reconsider the impact of the district's new open access policies, to which I've just become aware today from my counselor, especially on academic electives. Since I teach Spanish, I will refer to my language course specifically in middle school. Spanish 1 is broken up into 2 years. It's a slow and comfortable pace for students to acquire new language. 7th grade Spanish 1A is all about learning to comprehend written and spoken language. As students move from novice low, where they are learning to identify individual words, to novice mid, where they can recognize and produce highly practiced phrases. Typically, if students have an 80% or higher, they move on to Spanish 1B. Spanish 1B is much more rigorous because students progress from novice mid to novice high, where they will be expected to produce language, not just interpret. Producing is much more rigorous and challenging at the novice level than showing comprehension only. Because it's so much more rigorous, if students are not passing with a B or better, they are typically exited out of the program. This is not to hold anyone back from language acquisition. In fact, it is to help them in their future high school experience. Our middle school students, when entering Spanish 2 at the high school, are entering a class filled with sophomores and juniors. They are the youngest in the class and can feel insecure that it's their first year in high school. The high school pace is also twice as fast as the middle school pace. And their grade is now factored into their high school GPA, unlike their middle school grade. That is a lot of pressure from one class. But the advantage they have over students who took Spanish 1 at the high school is that they've had twice the exposure to the language and generally are very prepared to handle all the new pacing. This is the reason we exit students out of Spanish at the middle school level if they failed to earn a B in 7th grade. If they are struggling at a slow pace of middle school, what would that be like for students who struggle to get a C or a D in the 8th grade with such a slow pace to suddenly be thrust into such a huge change of pace with more pressure as a freshman in high school? We already are seeing the effect this year of the open access policies. Last year, many students were pushed forward to 8th grade Spanish because the year ended abruptly due to COVID. It was a no harm year. We could already see who was going to really struggle in the 8th grade, but our recommendations fell on deaf ears. This year, many of the students who would have normally been exited out during are currently failing or struggling in my class. When they asked to be moved to a different elective, they could not. There was no room in our electives for so many kids to move out. In fact, 30 at Iron Horse were forced to stay put in a year-long elective because there was no space for an alternative elective.
Lacey, please wrap up your comments.
Sure, if they were not automatically moved out of 7th grade, I'm almost done, they could have signed up for a more appropriate elective. And this is one of a section, and that's a whole section worth of students. So to wrap it up, pushing students who are not ready to move forward in the name of progression is not always a good thing. With all the talk about mental health condition of our students these days, I wish that you'd be willing to reconsider this open access policy when it comes to academic electives at the middle school level. It's harmful for them to be thrust into that situation. They're only 13. Thank you.
Let's see. And Helen. Or 9.3, public comment.
So I want to bring to the board's attention that in 2020, there was a lawsuit in the Superior Court of Alameda that will impact all of our high school students starting 2025, which is that they're doing away with SAT and ACT scores. And the lawsuit is reminiscent of the Rafferty case to me, because it was initiated by activist group, which includes Chinese for Affirmative Action. I'm not sure why Chinese people, I'm Asian, so I'm from Taiwan. So this is not racist or discriminatory comment, but a realistic questioning of why the judge, one judge can single-handedly affect people's admission of a state as big as California. And there is no alternative suggestion on how the students then can be admitted into the highest level of public education, which is the University of California, encompasses different locations throughout the state. I would like the board, the superintendent, to please look further into what kind of substitute plan they have. This is very distressing, especially for students who are on the lower bottom end of the progression. It will probably affect at least 2/3 of our current students. So please, I urge you to investigate into it. If it's necessary, these people are suing using tax dollar money. That's why it reminds me of Rafferty. They got 1.25 million out of taxpayer money. So if necessary, we can probably do the same and countersuit, because they're messing with everyone's education. This needs to be denounced. This is not equity at all. This is hypocrisy. And this is basically just cunning salesperson's tactic to get something they want on other people's cost. Thank you.
I think that's all the public comment we have. So 9.4, Association President's Report. Tammy, did you want to go first?
Good evening. I'm Tammy Casluccio. I'm the president of CSEA. This week is Classified Employees Week. We had an opportunity to meet a few of our classified employees tonight for pizza at Primo's. It was so nice to gather with a small group again in person. Please remember to acknowledge and thank all of our classified employees always, but this week especially. They are the backbone of our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Ann?
Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Malloy, all the cabinet members, staff, our sisters and brothers in CSCA and SEIU, our students, our community partners, and to all of the Servia members who are listening tonight. I am Ann Katzberg, and I am counting the days that I'm able to address you as the president of the San Ramon Valley Education Association, representing your teachers, speech and language pathologists, teacher librarians, counselors, psychologists, and social workers. So just in case you missed it and you weren't listening earlier, I was able to give my last retirement speech to my colleagues and myself tonight. Thank you for that opportunity. This is my second to last speech, as we have one more board meeting that is going to be scheduled during my term, and then my vice president, Laura Finko, will be taking over. It's been a long career. I started in 1985, and you can imagine educators go into education to make a difference, to make the world a better place. I got into the union and the work that I'm doing early on in my career because I understood how important it is to speak out on behalf of our students. I saw huge improvements over the span of my career. During my first 3 years, I witnessed crazy making at my former district in Union City as they struggled to know how many teachers they could be hired each year because there was never any guarantee of any funding. With the passing of Prop 98 in 1988, our students gained a prospect of stability, knowing that we could open our schools with a reasonable assumption of the funding for the upcoming school. In 1996, I witnessed another great reform in class size reduction. My class size reduced in the middle of the year from 34 to 20 students. I remember feeling as though I could breathe. My students had a different teacher, as I was calmer, happier, relaxed, and I could hone in on the individual needs. I can't describe how vastly different it was. I can only assure you how amazing this experience was for our students. It was then that I knew that our students' learning environment was our educators' workplace. As I look to now, I once again believe we are on the precipice of change. We are together as a community, united on wanting to provide the best education possible for our students. This last year has been a challenge, and I think that might be the understatement of the century. But despite our struggles, we have persevered, and the end is in sight. Tonight, you will be discussing the stipend for our employees. As a president, I have heard stories throughout this year. A lot of them you are well aware of. Our employees have shown up to our schools since we began the school year. Our office managers have kept our schools running. Our food services have fed our families. Our custodians prepared our classrooms for our students. And our educators devoted every waking hour to learning how to create rigor in their lessons to the best of their abilities. Our educators spent their own money on supplies, bagging up the books and the materials for our students to learn remotely. Many of them brought their supplies on their own. When our students returned to some of our campuses, we had kindergarten teachers that were buying scissors for their lefties because they didn't know their students were lefties until they saw them in person. We had teachers buying monitors, computers, headphones, just to name a few, to keep their remote classroom alive. We want to teach our students in the best physical space possible. Technology was never going to be the lone format that we knew we needed to welcome our students, yet we had to do this. And because we did, our educators figured out a way to make it successful. We used our own personal money for these funds. We bought items, but more importantly, we sacrificed time with our families, with our children, in order to effectively educate our students. Our members are grateful for the acknowledgement of this reimbursement at a time of year when we look forward to our summer and rejuvenating our souls in preparation for next year. Our focus is on our students, and it always has been on securing the best education for our students, the best services, and the best class sizes. The pandemic has enhanced our priorities, and we know that in order to bring joy into our schools, to embrace learning with gusto, our students need to feel good about themselves. And I want to personally thank you for changing our schools for the future. With the addition of counselors at our elementary schools, our students' social emotional needs will be met by the professionals who are trained to address learning barriers, providing access for all of our students. I am full of gratitude this evening. In addition to our counselors, I'm excited by the support our educators will be getting with our MTSS specialists and our intervention specialists. I would like to thank Dr. Malloy for the work you've been doing with our SRVUSD members. The recent meetings you have participated in with our art lead, our GLBTQ equity leaders, and tomorrow's meeting on providing an inclusive environment for our students is so appreciated. We know how important communication is for all of us, and we continue to dialogue and share our thoughts. And when we do, our students. This week, Laura and I will be attending the school service presentation on the governor's May revise. The governor's proposed budget contains a plethora of funding for education. As I think about the many provisions, I'm feeling more confident about the future for our students. Our younger students will be starting school earlier, and they will have an ideal student to teacher ratio. Because we opened up our schools, we will receive more funding to prepare our students over the summer and beyond. We will have a substantial increase in our local control funding formula, allowing our students to have more guarantees than ever before. There is so much that we have to look forward to, and I'm excited for our students. I'm excited for you, for our trustees, who have begun to put into place your strategic plan for equity, deep learning, and the social emotional well-being of our students. There is opportunity, let it abound. SRVUSD members have always been laser focused on our students. We look forward to our continued partnership, ensuring our students' education is the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And now on to action item 10.1. Board to take action to seat student board member. Really excited on this. Yeah. Sure. Tom Papiano.
Thank you, President Ordway and trustees and Dr. Malloy. I'm thrilled tonight to be here. We've had an excellent student trustee process. We had over 55 students apply to be a trustee. We interviewed 10 students, and standing next to me is the person that rose to the top. But before I introduce him, I want to read something from his application and his letter of recommendation. Ronit Batra, 11th grader at Monte Vista High School, is one of the finest people I've ever had the privilege to meet during my 25 years as an educator. When talking with Ronit, you know you're in the presence of someone who is going to make a positive impact on the world in any of the areas he chooses to pursue. He's interested in everything that goes on, which I believe would truly inspire other students in this program, in this district, to make this a better place. He is the most mature, intelligent, honest, sincere student I've ever been around. He is dedicated to helping other people be better instead of focusing on himself, something you don't often see in a high school student. So I'm honored tonight to introduce Ronit Batra. He will be our student trustee at your table next year. And I'm just thrilled. Before I turn it over to Ron to say a few words, I wanted to turn it over to Dr. Malloy, because I know that the two of us, along with President Ordway and Principal Ball and 3 high school students, had the privilege to interview 10 students. And it inspired us, and it made us so believe in the work that we are doing. And this young man is going to make an incredible difference for our students across the district and be able to liaison with our student senate and to work closely with you. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Malloy for a moment.
Thank you, Mr. Campopiano. And I just want to echo the privilege it was to be a part of the process. We have amazing students in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. And Ron, you certainly articulated on behalf of all of our students why we're here. And I also had a quick conversation with Ron before we started our meeting, and I just kind of echoed the importance of how your place at this table represents the voices of all of our students. And though we have wonderful structures that will be forming like Student Senate, the question I left with Ronit was, how do we also ensure that the voices of those who don't put their hands up are also here. And that was the question that I left with you, and I trust that you will engage that immensely. Anytime any of us and anyone in education and beyond connects with students, I'm guessing you have a similar experience. The clarity that is often there, the honesty and candor that always follows, is to me, in my role, regardless of what I've done in education as a teacher, as a principal, as a superintendent, has always been the most meaningful, because you remind us of what's most important. So again, I am so grateful to our board for this direction. I'm so grateful for the opportunities that will emerge. And we thought it would be your opportunity to say a few words, Ronit, because this is really an important night for you. So I'd like to send this to you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So first off, I just wanted to thank everybody for giving me this opportunity and for allowing me to serve next school year on the Board of Education as a student trustee. I think that it's really important that we have this position, not only for next year, but just for coming years. Overall, I mean, the school board as a whole exists in order to help the student body, in order for the enrichment and the growth of our student population as a whole and our schools. And I really think that by incorporating the student opinion with this position, but also with stakeholder engagement and a variety of other initiatives that the school board has taken, and I believe will continue to take over the next few years, I think that it's really amazing that they're considering the opinions of the people that they are designed to serve. So overall, I really just wanted to thank you all for this opportunity. I look forward to serving next year, and I really hope to represent, as Dr. Malloy said, the student body as a whole. Often we hear from students at some of these board meetings, at other events, coordinated by schools or by the district as a whole, on their opinions on some of the issues that matter. But I really think that it's important to incorporate the opinions of the entirety of the student body. And I really hope to make that one of my objectives and missions for this following year. So overall, thank you so much. And I look forward to serving next year.
And I'll just close, Ronit. Congratulations. We asked Ronit to say a few words just before, so you can see without much time for preparation, we know what we have in store. And I also need to say publicly, because again, our meeting tonight lands on a night before a major AP exam. So Ronit may be leaving early this evening. And I wanted to say that publicly because, of course, though we want and need your contribution on this board, you are a student as the priority. And so I was grateful that you mentioned that. So President Ordway, we are pleased to bring this forward to you tonight for your approval.
Oh, yeah. So unless there's questions, can I have a motion to seat our student board member?
Move approval.
A second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark, Board Member Mintz, my apologies, and seconded by Board Member Clark. Call out vote. Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Ronit.
Welcome.
Uh, 10.4, disclosure of the major provisions of the 2020-2021 Memoranda of Understanding with.
Excuse me, we're on 10.2.
Sorry, I missed a page.
Problem.
10.2, consideration of adoption of resolution number 74/2021, designated May 1st to 31st as Mental Health Awareness Month. And Assistant Superintendent Collado will present.
Sure. Thank you, President Ordway. May has been designated National Mental Health Awareness Month in the United States by the Mental Health American Organization. We as a district believe a focus on early intervention could greatly reduce the number of children experiencing serious mental health in our local community and in our community beyond. Mic is not working, so I apologize for that. The administration and its services would like to recommend the adoption of this resolution, which supports May 1st to 31st as Mental Health Awareness Month.
Okay, any comments or questions?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out. vote. And I'm going to stop for one moment because we do have a public comment.
Oh,
President Ordway, do you mind if I call the?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it's Helen of Doherty Valley.
Hello. I just want to share with you my definition of what is mental health. I am not afraid for people to disagree with me. I am not afraid for people to teach me, to edify me, to mock me even, but I'm afraid for people to require me to think like them. That's when I will wither mentally because I cannot be myself. Before I'm able to move, I have a being inside me. Maybe you call them mental, me. But that should be coming from who I am, not what you think what I should be. With that, I want to bless the young men we just installed as the representative for our students. He is going to require so much wisdom, support, and assurance, because when we are inquiring into everyone's opinions, we don't agree all the time. So I want to bless him. I want to thank his parents for lending him to serve us. And I pray for him that he will be greatly blessed for what he will be doing for us, and that we will learn to respect each other's mental being. Thank you.
On
Okay.
10.2, the motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Board Member Clark,
Aye.
Board Member Bratt,
Aye.
Board Member Hurd,
Aye.
Board Member Mintz,
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye,
The motion passes 5-0.
thank you. 10.3, consideration of acceptance of independent financial audit of the building fund for the general obligation bond Measure D election of 2021 for the 2019-2020 fiscal year ending June 20, 2020. Superintendent.
Yes, I'm back again. I'm filling in for Mr. Medici tonight. In accordance with Education Code 41020, the district has contracted with Eide Bailey LLP, an accountancy corporation licensed with the State Board of Accountancy, for an audit of the building fund for the general obligation bonds Measure D election of 2012. The audit report, has been filed with the County Superintendent of Schools, the State Department of Education, and the Office of the State Controller. Copies of the audit were distributed to board members only. Interested parties may view the report at the front desk of the district office or may obtain copies of the audit from the Office of the Chief Business Officer, 699 Old Orchard Drive, Danville, California, 94526. At this point in this item, normally in a normal year, we would invite the representative from Eide Bailey to come up and speak and address the board. Unfortunately, Eide Bailey still has a policy of everyone working remotely. So better yet, I have Terry Montgomery from Eide Bailey here on the phone, and I'm going to put it up to the mic to see if I believe she has something that she would like to address to the board, and then I can relay questions to her, and we can talk back and forth and see if you have any questions or concerns. So, Ms. Montgomery, are you there?
Montgomery from Eide Bailey. I have just a short report for you. We did finish the Building Fund Measure D annual audit as of June 30, 2020. It's important to remember it's as of that date because that's before any summertime construction. The other important thing to know is that we issue 2 audit reports for these types of building funds. One is a normal financial statement audit, And the other is unique to these types of funds and is called a performance audit. The financial statement audit was a clean opinion. We had no adjustments proposed. And our auditor's language tells you the financial statements were presented fairly. The second report that we issue, the performance report, our purpose there was a little bit different. Instead of verifying amounts, the purpose of a performance report is to verify the allowability of the costs. To review that information, we looked at about 41% of the expenses in the year and determined that those expenditures appeared to be the projects that were authorized by the voters in the voter measure. That second report also had no findings or proposed changes. That concludes my report.
Does the board have any questions for either myself or Ms. Montgomery?
Mr. Hillman, just one question for Ms. Montgomery, one that we always seem to ask, and that is, did the accounting firm, the audit firm, feel that it had the full support of staff in producing its report and coming up with its finding?
Ms. Montgomery, did you catch that?
I believe so, at least part of it. Let me answer that. And if not, please feel free to expand. In doing the audit, we were definitely supported by the district and the people within the district. We appreciated all the information that was provided to us in a very timely and comprehensive manner. And we did not have any difficulties in obtaining the information we requested.
Very good, thank you.
And Ms. Montgomery, is there anything else that you feel like you should tell us?
If that question was, is there anything else I feel like we should discuss? No, there was no information that we would need to bring forward to the board.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? I do have. 10.3. So Helen has a public comment on 10.3.
I would like to know if this is the same audit as the one that we talked about last week for Mr. Medici's operation also. I'm a little bit confused if this is the same. If this is different, then I understand, but if it's the same, then it seems like the audit just happened so quickly in a week.
Helen, it's a different audit. This is an audit of the facility development funds, which were discussed in the presentation that Mr. Hillman did earlier. The other was about the district's.
Got it. Thank you for the
Main
clarification. But what misled me is that the name here for 10.3 on the agenda is listed as Mr. Medici. So maybe next time we can make sure that all the names are squared away. So, you know, I don't waste everyone's time. Thank you for your clarification, Trustee Hurd.
President Ordway, I should just clarify that Mr. Hillman is filling in only because Mr. Medici is not able to be here with us this evening.
Right.
Right. The agenda item explains which fund was audited and which funds audited the previous report.
We have no other question for Ms. Montgomery. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Call out vote. Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, before we go on to 10.4, I wanted to make sure because I've got a card here for 10.2. And I thought, Helen, you already did 10.2, yes? Okay. Okay. 10.4, disclosure of the major provisions of the 2020-2021 Memoranda of Understanding with San Ramon Valley Education Association, California School Employees Association, Chapter 65, Unit 2 and Unit 3, and Service Employees International Union, Local 1021, for a one-time payment and issuance of a one-time payment to all management and confidential employees in accordance with the requirements for AB 1200, AB 2765, and Government Code 3547. Yeah, this is just a disclosure, so no action. Any questions, comments? Okay, then we're moving on to 10.5, which is consideration of approval. So this is the action item of the 2020-2021 Memoranda of Understanding with San Ramon Valley Education Association, SRVUSD, California School Employees Association, CSEA, Chapter 65, Units 2 and 3, and Service Employees International Union, SEIU, Local 1021, for a one-time payment and issuance of a one-time payment to all management and confidential employee. Assistant Superintendent Keith Rochinski.
Thank you, President Ordway. So the previous item 10.4, as President Ordway mentioned, was strictly a public disclosure item. And the whole point of the public disclosure item is to meet the statutory requirement to publicly sunshine agreements that have been made between the district as an employer and its exclusive bargaining units, the terms of that agreement and the costs that are associated with it. In disclosing those items under 10.4 and in receiving certification from the County Office of Education that the district does have sufficient funds to pay for the agreements that we have reached with our 3 bargaining units, we've met the statutory requirements for public disclosure as well as for AB 1200 under item 10.4. What item 10.5 asks you to do is to simply take a look at and review the 3 memoranda of understanding that we have reached with the 3 bargaining units. We are recommending that they be approved by the Board of Education tonight as presented to you. And this item also requests that you approve the issuance of the same one-time payment under the same terms and conditions to the district's unrepresented management and confidential employees. The cost associated with this is just shy of $7.2 million. This is a one-time cost, and it is an unrestricted general fund cost. So approval is recommended as presented under this item.
Thank you. Any questions from the board or comments? Fine.
Keith, I would just want to take one moment and reiterate that these funds are coming from unrestricted reserves. They're not coming from either state or federal dollars that are coming to us relative to COVID. Those funds, we talked about a previous meeting and how we're going to be allocating those funds separately.
Yes, Vice President Mintz, that's absolutely the case. The funds that are being used to pay the one-time stipends to employees across the district are not associated with the COVID relief dollars that the spending plan of which was presented for last time. This is strictly unrestricted and I believe a very, very small portion of restricted general. Thank you.
So basically what we presented, I think you presented last time, money going to students will go to students, and this is separate.
That's correct.
Can you talk a little bit to how this one-time payment compares to our surrounding school districts and our ability to retain our teachers and to provide?
Absolutely. Well, I think that we already know and are aware that the compensation package, and when I talk about compensation package, I refer to salary as well as health and welfare benefits for district certificated and classified employees, already puts us in a very strong position when it comes to competition with other school districts and ability to attract and retain top quality certificated, classified, and management employees in the school district. Other districts in the area, there are a number of districts in Contra Costa and Alameda County that we are aware of that are either in the process of negotiating or that have already negotiated similar one-time agreements with their bargaining units. Some of them are of the magnitude of 2,000 plus or minus. Some of them exceed slightly $3,000. So this is very much what we have agreed to is very much in alignment with our understanding as to what several other districts are either in the process of or have completed negotiating with their bargaining.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I have a motion.
Like to move approval of the item?
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Board Member Clark,
Aye.
Board Member Bratt,
Aye.
Board Member Hurd,
Aye.
Board Member Mintz,
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Great. Now, actually, that's all the action items. So, administrative matters, board report. Kelly,
So this past week, I went to the my first meeting of the city of San Ramon, the town of Danville liaison. And I'm really impressed with the cohesiveness and the support that we all have for each other. It's really great. And it's great to hear about what's going on in San Ramon because that's an important part of our school district also, while I'm a liaison to the town of Danville. So I know what's going on there. Us all working together on all the different issues and especially coming out of the pandemic it's really, we live in a great community. So that's pretty much it for me.
and Laura, do you have any?
I just want to take a second to thank our classified staff. They do amazing work, and as we look back at COVID, we can really see how they've gone, as they always do, above and beyond to ensure that our district was able to pivot and do what they needed to do, and I just really appreciate them. I also want to say thank you to Miss Chang and Miss Lyon at Cal High for inviting me into their global studies class, giving me the opportunity to speak to their students about what we do as a Board of Education and how students can become involved. It was wonderful to speak with them and get their ideas and give them some information about how they can advocate. So, and then a week or two ago was a SELPA Day of Advocacy, and Trustee Hurd and I were able to piggyback with Mount Diablo Unified School District and speak to Senator Grayson and Glazer's staff about some legislation with our special education community that was very valuable. So that was exciting. So thank you.
Laura, thank you for mentioning the SELPA Ledge Day. I thought it was great to participate with another school district. It was really nice to do that together, and they were very happy to have us. Laura and I are on a lot of the same liaison committees. We both participated in the traffic's meeting this afternoon, the planning for next year's traffic congestion relief busing program is moving forward. It's great to see how well it has jump-started with the return to school. And now they're really just waiting on our pinning down the bell schedules so they can start marketing the program for next year. And that's only at 11 of our campuses, but it's still a very fantastic service for our families in terms of getting the kids to our campuses. I wanted to also do a little shout out for the Climate and Culture Committee, which has been meeting all year long. Tammy does a fabulous job being the administrative person for that group, and it's just done so much this year. I've been on the Climate Committee for a long time, and it just really feels like it has a lot of energy now. We broke into subcommittees that had staff members and students and community members on them, each tackling different aspects of culture and climate. And it was just so great to see, as everybody reported out at the final meeting, how eager they are to continue that work next year. So shout out to John Campopiano also for, wait, I've got that. Yeah. John?
Chris George, I think.
Chris George. I'm sorry, Chris. Yes, Chris is the lead on that one. There's too many committees. But it's just great to see the new life in that committee and the work coming out of it. I also wanted to include that I attended the CSBA Delegate Assembly this last weekend. We had a meeting Friday night, a full day Saturday, and half a day Sunday. So it was a lot of sitting in front of Zoom, but really great reports. And the highlight was that we got a report on the governor's May revise, which is always interesting. And as Ann mentioned, there is some encouraging stuff coming in there, including the funding of transitional kindergarten over a multi-year period. But it's great to see that what is given to a small group of 4-year-olds now will be extended, should pass. But then also we broke into small group sessions with about 20 delegates in each breakout and really had probably an hour and a half of conversation about various districts' opening plans for the fall. And it was just really interesting to hear where everyone was, what it was like for this year. Felt really good to talk about our stuff and how much we have, figured out in that regard already. And one last thing, we have a CCC SBA meeting this Thursday evening. Dennis Myers will be talking about the May revise, and I think I saw all of us on the registration. So see you all then. Thanks.
Thanks. Dan?
Just a couple of quick things that we have upcoming that I want to point out. On Thursday in the morning, we have the PTA a recognition breakfast for incoming and outgoing presidents for the various PTAs. And I just wanted to give that an acknowledgement because we have a lot of folks in our community that making a tremendous difference through PTA, representing the community parents, as well as the teachers that participate in those programs across our entire district. Really head and shoulders above many other districts in terms of the influence and support that we receive from our PTAs. But the other one this weekend is a swearing-in ceremony for our students who are going to be attending armed forces, moving into armed forces. It's a relatively small group, as you'd expect. The vast majority of our students plan to go to college, either community college or four-year university. But we do have a number of students who do choose to go into the armed services. One of the nice things that our community does is it recognizes these young men and women through the community. Normally, these swearing-in ceremonies take place at a recruitment office with just that individual. And for a number of years now, we've been holding a ceremony through the town of Danville, City of San Ramon, and others, and local veterans organizations that brings in the recruiters with the families in a public way and recognizes the important decision that these young people have made in support of our country. And it's just very nice. Unfortunately, this year, it's pretty much of a closed ceremony, just given COVID restrictions. So I think it's limited to just a few dozen people, but it's still something that's, I think, very important to recognize that we do have students who are taking other paths, important paths, and again, an opportunity for our community to find
Wanted to add onto the recognition breakfast, right, PTA. On Thursday, we also typically, the PTA, the council awards scholarship to our graduating high school students that are selected by their schools. So looking forward to that. And then I also kind of want to shout out and also promote some summer enrichment classes. Our district, right? I know that our district has been hard at work planning for summer school, but of course we're focused on intervention and social emotional support of the kids who really need to have some attention right before the next school year. So I was talking with on the meeting with the our San Ramon Valley Education Foundation, and they've partnered with us, and they have just released their list of summer enrichment courses for the our kids who would like to move on to other interesting, classes and things like that for this summer, please go onto their website and take a look because they've got huge list of enrichment classes, and I think all of them, maybe but one, are actually going to be taught by a lot of our teachers. So it's certificated teachers teaching these classes. So yeah, so I know that district with our partner will support students whether or not they need intervention or enrichment. So just want to shout out to them. Okay, with that, Superintendent.
Thank you, President Ordway. I just have two comments I wanted to make. The first comment being my thanks to our classified staff who work so amazingly well, effectively well in our district. To Tammy and Mona for your continuous leadership. Carrie, who's not here this evening, we appreciate her as well for the ways in which we work together for students and for our SRVUSD community. So when I visit campuses, when I walk through our departments and I see our classified staff in action, just the impact is continuous and constant, and I wanted to offer my thanks as well. And I just wanted to offer a few comments about the governor's May revised budget, which was announced last week. Trustees, you would know that we need to hear back on June 15th what has happened in terms of what goes on in the legislature, and it's due back to the governor on June 15th. The information we're hearing is positive. Way more positive than we ever thought we would hear at this time. And certainly the additional dollars, any additional dollars we might be able to receive, we will be grateful for. The areas of focus continue to be any impacts on learning that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused. Early learning, TK programming, for example, is really front and center. The whole concept of how we accelerate learning in our return is key. Additional information around COLA, the cost of living piece, which we know is very important because that connects to ongoing funding. And so looking for clarity as this moves forward regarding this important option. The virtual option, interestingly enough, the governor has been pretty clear that he wants it to be within the independent study umbrella. So we actually, I'll say, guessed that properly. And I'm grateful for the fact that we did so. Clearly not creating conditions that wants to see the virtual option grow. And there are many different ways that that has been considered, but I'm comfortable and confident that the direction you've given us to provide that opportunity the way we are through the virtual academy aligns with the expectations. It may mean some additional paperwork. We're waiting to hear what that additional paperwork might mean. We'll bring you information as we learn it. It's just comments that have been made, more to come on that front. Mental health is front and center. Access to broadband for those who need it is also there. But I think it's also important for me to state that many of the announcements will benefit those boards who are serving larger number of students. Duplicated students is the official term, but students that may be considered as having greater need. Some of the grants are only for those districts that have students in circumstances that I've just described. So we will wait and see. We will be optimistic. We know that we have the dollars that you've already given us direction for. We know that the use of those dollars is already providing excitement in our community. It's believed that it is required and needed. And one of the things that we will pay close attention to, you heard me mention it during the strategic directions discussion. We understand as we listen to our stakeholders, as we engage our staff, what we know our students deserve. We can actually basically understand what that would cost. Based upon the information that we know, we can determine what revenues we have. And we also then can be quite creative to advocate for and to allocate the dollars we do have for the values that our community holds. And that's going to be a significant amount of work going forward. You've heard me say that before. Bottom line, much more positive than we expected, but it's important to note that we're just in a process that moves to June. And then the most important process, as you know, which is after we understand what our attendance is in August, and we look to the month of September as we make our own revisions in light of everything that's been approved by the state as it relates to our situation here. So I wanted to offer that comment as well, and more information to come as it becomes available.
Great, thank you, Superintendent Malloy. Okay, Helen, one more public comment card on 12.2.
Yes, I'm going to speak a little bit faster because I want to make sure I get everything in within the time limit I have. So Superintendent Malloy, I have two issues to address with you. Yesterday, my experience at the 99 Wrench made me realize that there are two different kinds of bullies. And this is relevant in our school campus as well. Because yesterday I had encountered a passive aggressive bully. He was filming me first. I saw him in the mirror. Then I brought out my phone, blocked him from filming me. Then he started accusing me for filming him, hit my phone away, called the police, which I was grateful that he called the police because otherwise I would have to interrupt my recording of him and call the police. And I would never in a million years thought that the store was collaborating, was colluding with them. They shut down the doors, insisted that they won't let me out until I deleted whatever that was on my phone. Dr. Malloy, if this happened in our school, what would you do? I want to share with you two of my takeaways from my experience last night. I'm very grateful to the Pleasanton PD. I don't know why people have issues with white police. The 4 PD cars that were sent to take care of the case last night
I'm sorry, can I call a
handled
point
the
of order,
issue
please?
completely.
Excuse me, Helen. I'm sorry, but we have a time for items that are not on our agenda. And I don't see how the current speaker is relating to the last item on our agenda, which was
Because this will circle back
the
to campus
administrative
police
reports from the board and the
and
superintendent.
curriculum. I asked the permission to continue because this circles back to campus police as well as curriculum.
Those were not included in Dr. Malloy's comments this evening.
Well, but he is the superintendent, so I don't know where else to address.
If I may, that would be, excuse me, I just turned my mic off. That would be part of non-agendized public comments if you'd like to share them. At this point, we're just commenting on the reports. If you have something you'd like to say in relationship to what you heard from any one of us, by all means, that would be appropriate. But if any other comments outside of that would be done at another board meeting under non-agendized public comments as we have each meeting.
I asked to finish just one more minute.
It needs to be on the topic that you've heard, please.
The agenda says superintendent report, and the report you reported, I believe, was concerning the well-being of our district.
My report was on thanking our classified staff and the governor's announcements from Friday.
Okay, so as I know that we hire police, this is why this is pertinent, because I want to make sure that we continue to have funds for campus police. And I also want you to please have a curriculum that teaches students on how to answer and react to our campus police like they are one of our classified staff. Also, I didn't want anyone to go starving. That's why I did not give you a card for 10.5. I did notice, and nobody else of you guys here questioned, what is confidential employees? Are they Chinese spies? Are they Russian spies? Who are
Helen, your
confidential
time is up
employees?
now. That's 3 minutes.
It pertains to the classified. Okay, I'm overtime. Is that what you're saying to me?
Yes.
Okay, so next time, please, if it's confidential employees, the district should disclose to the public, why are we hiring confidential employees? Who are they? Thank you.
Okay, with that, I think we're adjourned for this meeting.